Think back to a frozen trail, the kind where silence weighs heavier than the snow itself. Then, without warning, an engine growls to life. Tracks churn, ice cracks, and suddenly a small machine cuts across the white wilderness like a predator on the hunt. Most people picture towering snowcats, giant tractors, or armored tanks when they think of winter vehicles. Machines built to overwhelm the cold with brute size and force. But what about the little ones? The underdogs of snow engineering. Machines so compact they almost look like toys until you see them climb slopes, tow loads, and power through storms as if the elements never mattered. These machines weren't built to impress. They were built to survive. They were built to work in silence while the giants got all the glory. But today, it's their turn. We're uncovering the smallest off-road snow vehicles ever made. Ingenious, forgotten, and downright surprising. And trust me, the last machine we'll reveal isn't just rare, it will completely change how you think about snow vehicles forever. ATEX 66. Back in the adventurous days of the 1970s, when off-road exploration was booming, one machine stood out as both futuristic and fearless, the ATX 66. Born in Pennsylvania, this vehicle wasn't originally designed for snow. Instead, it was marketed as an amphibious off-roader, capable of tackling mud, swamps, streams, and forest trails. But as winter adventurers quickly discovered, it had another hidden talent: it could claw its way across snowfields with surprising ease. With 6 wheels working in perfect unison and a body that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie, the ATX 6X6 became one of the coolest toys an outdoorsman could dream of. At the heart of this machine was a compact but punchy 2-cylinder engine with about 450 cc, delivering close to 40 horsepower. On paper, that didn't sound like much, but paired with its lightweight design and fiberglass body, the ATX felt like a snow rocket. Instead of tracks like most snow machines, it relied on 6 oversized, high-traction tires that gripped icy terrain like a predator's claws. With full-time 6-wheel drive, every tire was always pulling, ensuring the machine rarely bogged down. The moment the throttle opened, you could hear the raspy engine note echoing across frozen lakes, a sound that mixed snowmobile energy with ATV grit. Visually, the ATX was something special. Its low-slung fiberglass shell kept the weight down and gave it a sleek, futuristic look. The cockpit could fit 2 to 4 passengers, depending on the setup, and instead of a traditional steering wheel, drivers used handlebars just like a snowmobile. This gave it an intuitive, responsive feel, especially on icy trails. Riding in one wasn't just transportation, it was an experience. Between the roar of the little engine, the bouncing rhythm of 6 wheels pounding over drifts, and the cold air rushing by, the ATX gave its riders the sense they were in a motorsport dreamland. Of course, fun was its main calling card. In northern states like Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Alaska, ATEX 6X6s were often seen darting across frozen lakes, transporting fishermen to their ice shacks, or hauling small loads of supplies to remote cabins. They weren't meant for heavy-duty labor, but their versatility made them valuable for anyone living where roads ended and snowfields began. Adventurers loved them for trail rides, snow exploration, and even winter hunting trips. The ATX wasn't just a machine, it was freedom packaged in fiberglass. But where the ATX 6X6 truly became legendary was in the custom scene. Owners didn't just drive them, they personalized them. Some added winches to pull logs or rescue stuck snowmobiles, while others mounted headlights and roof lights that made the machine glow in the dark winter nights. Lift kits, custom paint jobs, and even homemade track conversions turned stock ATX models into one-of-a-kind snow beasts. Even today, restored examples appear at vintage vehicle shows and snow festivals, always drawing crowds. Decades later, the ATX 6X6 still stands as a symbol of creativity, adventure, and the golden age of experimental off-road machines. Homemade mini snow tank. This one is unlike anything else you've seen on snow. It's so compact and stripped down that the driver doesn't even ride on top of it. Instead, they sit on a sled or a pair of skis attached to the back, getting pulled along like cargo. There's no seat, no suspension, and absolutely no comfort, just a raw machine made up of an engine, a track, and a stubborn will to move forward. The homemade mini snow tank first started gaining popularity in the early 2000s, especially in places like the United States, Canada, and Russia, where winter forces people to invent solutions out of necessity or just for fun. These weren't factory-built machines rolling off assembly lines. They were hand-built, one at a time, in garages, barns, and backyards by people who wanted a cheap and fun way to tear through the snow. Most builds used small two-cylinder engines, usually in the 300 to 500 cc range, producing between 15 and 30 horsepower depending on how ambitious the builder was. And while those numbers sound modest, in a lightweight frame with a direct drive system, that power was more than enough to get moving. Visually, they looked rugged and raw: small metal frames, exposed parts, and tracks made from whatever could be scavenged, like old tires, conveyor belts, or even chains welded together. When one of these things fires up, you know it immediately. The engine has the sound of a go-kart on caffeine, loud, metallic, and almost too aggressive for something this small. They aren't fast machines, not by a long shot. But what they lack in speed, they make up for in stubbornness. These little tanks claw their way up snowy hills, drag sleds across frozen lakes, and rip through icy fields like they're on a mission to prove themselves. Some were even strong enough to tow small trailers loaded with firewood, tools, or ice fishing gear. The ride wasn't smooth, but it was effective. What makes the homemade mini snow tank so unique isn't just the machine, it's the culture around it. Over the years, a whole online community has formed around these builds. YouTube channels feature step-by-step guides showing how to weld frames, assemble DIY tracks, and test the machines out in deep snow. Builders experiment with LED lights, bold custom paint jobs, and even homemade roll cages, turning simple utility rigs into personal statements. In some places, enthusiasts even organize mini tank battles, where these machines go head-to-head in snowy obstacle courses for bragging rights. The mini snow tank may not have the polished engineering of a commercial snowmobile or the brute strength of a snowcat, but it has something those machines don't: character. Every build carries the fingerprints of its maker, every roar of the engine is a reminder of creativity at work. These little beasts prove that winter doesn't stand a chance when people put their imagination and welding skills to the test. They're more than machines, they're proof that you don't need big budgets or fancy tools to conquer the cold. Just a motor, some tracks, and a whole lot of heart. Yamaha Snow Scoot 80. In 1988, Yamaha never planned to make a snowmobile legend when they launched the Snow Scoot 80. It was designed in the late 1980s as a small, safe, and affordable snow machine for teenagers. But instead of staying a kids-only ride, it exploded into something much bigger. The Snow Scoot became a cult classic that both kids and adults could enjoy, a machine that blurred the line between toy and tool, fun and function. What began as a side project soon carved out its own place in snowmobile history. At first glance, the Snow Scoot 80 looked like a scaled-down snowmobile, but everything about it was real. It carried a two-stroke, two-cylinder engine of about 80 cc, producing a modest 5 to 8 horsepower. That doesn't sound like much, but paired with the Scoot's feather-light frame, it was enough to hit speeds close to 40 km per hour on packed snow. A single track at the rear and twin skis at the front gave it true snowmobile handling, letting riders carve turns and skim across trails with surprising control. It wasn't just fun, it felt authentic. Visually, the Snow Scoot captured the spirit of the 1980s, rounded edges, bold splashes of color, a wide front headlight, and minimalist controls gave it a futuristic vibe for the time. It looked sleek but playful, like something out of a sci-fi movie. And the sound, it didn't growl like the big sleds. Instead, it whined with a high-pitched, buzzing energy, almost like a snow bee darting through the woods. That sound alone became part of the charm, a soundtrack of winter fun for anyone who rode it. While Yamaha marketed the Snow Scoot to younger riders, it didn't take long for adults to start using it. Farmers used it to get across snowy fields, cabin owners used it to haul supplies, and hunters appreciated its light weight and reliability in remote areas. Its compact size meant it could be stored easily, lifted into a truck bed, or even dragged into the back of a garage without trouble. The Snow Scoot had unintentionally become a multi-purpose machine, balancing utility with pure joy. Decades later, the Snow Scoot 80 still holds a special place in the hearts of collectors and vintage snowmobile enthusiasts. Yamaha even revived the Snow Scoot name years later with newer models, but for many fans, the 1988 original remains the true classic. It wasn't powerful, it wasn't luxurious, and it wasn't meant to be revolutionary. Yet, by accident, it became exactly that: a small snowmobile with a big personality, remembered as much for the laughter it created as the trails it conquered. Snow Cub by Cushman. When most people think of snowmobiles, they picture powerful sleds roaring across frozen lakes or climbing steep, snowy trails. But in the mid-1960s, a company better known for scooters and utility vehicles decided to take a different approach. That company was Cushman, and their answer to the snowmobile craze wasn't speed or power, it was accessibility. They built a small, entry-level machine that almost anyone could afford, learn, and enjoy. The result was the Snow Cub, a compact snowmobile that became a quiet legend in its own way. At its core, the Snow Cub was designed to be simple. It carried a 2-cylinder engine with about 300 cc, producing between 7 and 10 horsepower. By modern standards, that's almost nothing. But power wasn't the point. This little machine wasn't built for racing or deep mountain riding, it was built for everyday snow travel. It could cruise across frozen fields, pull a small sled of supplies, and carry a rider through snowy backroads with surprising reliability. It was small, approachable, and easy to operate, the kind of machine you didn't have to be an expert to enjoy. The design reflected its purpose. One rubber track in the rear provided traction, while 2 small metal skis up front offered steering. There was no suspension system, no windshield, and certainly no cabin. Just a flat seat, a simple frame, and a pair of handlebars. The sound was soft and steady compared to larger sleds, but the ride was rough. Every bump and dip in the snow was felt directly. And yet, for many families, that didn't matter, because for the first time, winter fun and mobility were within reach. The Snow Cub became especially popular among families, rural workers, and hobbyists. Many parents even trusted it enough to let their kids learn how to ride on it. That's why it earned the nickname the Kid's Snowmobile. While fully capable of carrying adults, the smaller frame and modest power made it unintimidating for beginners. For countless children in the 1960s and 70s, the Snow Cub was their first real snowmobile experience. It wasn't flashy, but it gave them a taste of freedom on the snow. Over time, the Snow Cub's influence extended beyond its own production run. Other manufacturers took note of the demand for small, affordable snowmobiles and began experimenting with compact designs of their own. The Snow Cub helped pave the way for a whole category of entry-level machines. And while today's snowmobiles are bigger, faster, and more advanced than anything Cushman built, the Snow Cub still holds a special place in snowmobile history. It wasn't the loudest or the most powerful, but it was the little sled that made winter accessible for an entire generation. Boelen's Husky. When it comes to snow machines, most people picture riders sitting high on a sled, gripping handlebars, and leaning into the turns. But this one's just different. The Boelen's Husky was so compact and stripped down that you didn't even sit on the machine itself. Instead, you rode behind it on a sled or a pair of skis hitched to the back. No seat. No suspension. No comfort. Just a motor, a track, and sheer determination to push through deep snow. It was more tool than toy, and that's exactly what made it stand out. The Husky was developed in Canada in the early 1960s, a place where harsh winters weren't just an inconvenience, they were a way of life. Farmers needed to check their livestock, hunters needed to reach remote cabins, and rural workers needed something simple and reliable to move through knee-deep drifts. That's where the Husky came in. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. It was like a portable snow tractor, the kind of machine that could only have been born out of pure necessity. Under its frame sat a one-cylinder, 250cc engine producing somewhere between 8 and 10 horsepower. On paper, that doesn't sound like much. But with its lightweight build and direct drive system, the Husky didn't waste an ounce of power. The single track in the rear dug into the snow and pushed forward with relentless grip, while two small metal skis in the front kept it on course. It couldn't go fast, but speed was never the goal. What mattered was that it could crawl steadily across snowy fields, up hills, and over frozen farmland when few other machines could. Visually, the Husky looked less like a finished vehicle and more like a skeleton of one. The frame was bare, the engine fully exposed, and the handlebars straight and simple. No windshield, no seat, no extras, just the essentials. Even its sound matched its rugged character. The engine let out a dry, growling tone, loud enough to echo through the trees but never truly intimidating. You didn't ride the Husky, you followed it. And somehow, that made perfect sense. It wasn't about style or comfort, it was about survival. The legacy of the Husky is perhaps the most surprising part. Many of these machines are still running today. Across Canada and parts of the northern United States, you'll find enthusiasts restoring, collecting, and even using them. Not just for nostalgia, but because the Husky still does exactly what it was designed to do: pull people, sleds, and supplies across the snow with zero nonsense. No frills, no luxury, just raw utility. In a world obsessed with speed and features, the Husky remains a reminder that sometimes the simplest solution is the one that lasts. So, which of these machines captured your imagination today? Each one, no matter how small, carved out its place in snow history. They weren't built to impress crowds or break records, they were built to get the job done when conditions turned impossible. From compact Canadian snowcats to homemade conversions and amphibious wonders, every machine we saw today carried the same message: you don't need to be the biggest to become a legend. You just need the courage to keep moving forward. Now I want to hear from you. If you could only choose one of these snow machines to ride, which one would it be? And which one do you think still belongs out there in the snowfields today? Share your thoughts below. And if you love learning about snow engineering, vintage machines, and the genius behind survival vehicles, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Every week we dive into new stories of machines that thrived in the harshest conditions. Until then, stay strong, stay curious, and never forget, in the snow, legends are made, not born.